Hey folks, and welcome to SAT Side Quest, Master the SAT Essay. We're going to go ahead and give folks about 3 more minutes to join. I'm going to go ahead and pop up a timer on the screen. If you are already here, go ahead and write in the chat where you're joining from, as well as your number one concern about the SAT essay. So I'll go ahead and pop up that 3-minute timer, and then we'll go ahead and get rolling. All right, thanks for your patience, guys. We got a few more people who joined in, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So really quickly, again, this is PrepScholar Tutors SAT Side Quest, Master the SAT Essay. So today we are gonna be talking about the SAT essay. Saw some stuff in the chat about the reading and writing section. We are not talking about that today. So if you are here expecting something other than the essay, this is not the webinar for you. So just wanted to get that out of the way. So really quickly, an introduction to who I am. My name is Erica. I work on the writing and tutoring teams here at PrepScholar. So what that means is that I write lessons, questions, and explanations for PrepScholar's online program, and then I use that online program to work one-on-one with PrepScholar students around the world via the magic of the internet. So like all PrepScholar SAT writers and tutors, I have a 99th percentile SAT score, as well as years of experience teaching various standardized tests. So the tests that I teach are obviously the SAT as well as the ACT. I teach the GMAT, which is the Business School Admissions Test, the GRE, which is the Graduate School Admissions Test, the TOEFL, which is an English language proficiency test, a couple of APs, SAT2s, and a few others here and there. So I do quite a bit of this, but this is one of my favorite things that I do, is doing these webinars. I'm going to go ahead and disappear really quickly. I will still be here, obviously. I'm just doing some man behind the curtain type things. Alrighty. So, a couple of things before we get going. I'm going to be asking you guys to participate in the live stream today via the chat, but I'm not going to be able to answer a ton of your guys' questions until the Q&A at the end. So in the meantime, we've got Laura here in the chat. Now, she's another SAT expert here at PrepScholar, and she's going to be here to answer any burning questions that you guys have throughout the stream. Now, as a quick note, for those of you who want to use the chat, let's please keep it a useful tool by staying as on topic as possible. Similarly, if you're just here for the stream and you aren't interested in using the chat, totally cool. You can always close it to avoid distraction. So today's free live stream, as we mentioned, is hosted by PrepScholar Tutors. You can find out more about PrepScholar tutoring at prepscholartutors.com. That link is on your screen. And we'll talk more about PrepScholar's tutoring program in a little while. But first, we're going to kick off our conversation about the essay with an example. So this is an example paragraph from a sample SAT essay. Go ahead and give it a read and determine if you think it's a good, bad, or middle of the road paragraph. And then let me know what you think by giving me a face in the chat. So a smiley face, a frowny face, or kind of one of those sideways faces. So I'm gonna go ahead and put up a, let's do a 1 minute timer. Go ahead and give me your guys' thoughts in the chat. All right, we got some responses in the chat, and overall, it's looking like folks are thinking this is a pretty meh paragraph, which is awesome. Yeah, if we had to define it as one of these faces, I would probably define it as a middle of the road face. But it's kind of interesting because if we take a look at how this is actually scored, it's actually scored in 3 different categories. It's scored in reading, analysis, and writing. And each of those scores are out of 4. We'll talk a little bit more about this later. But what we'll notice about this paragraph is that it is a full-blown smiley face for reading, right? This is a 4 out of 4, right? But in the analysis section, it's a 1. It's as low as it goes. It's a full-blown frowny face. Whereas in writing, it's probably somewhere between that sideways face and a frowny face. So this is, on average, kind of middle of the road, but it has a lot of weird extremes in it. So we're going to come back and look at this paragraph and figure out why it got such a strange score later in this webinar. But for now, let's go ahead and talk about how this 60-minute webinar will help you. So we are going to determine exactly how important the essay is to you personally. We're also going to help you understand and boost your essay score. So if you've got something kind of strange, like this last paragraph we just saw, we're going to help you figure it out and then improve it. Similarly, we are going to teach you to avoid common pitfalls. So things that essays typically fall into that lower their scores. All right, what we are also going to talk about today is a special offer on PrepScholar Tutors online SAT tutoring. That's going to be $70 off of 4 hours of tutoring, $110 off of 12 hours of tutoring, $350 off of 50 hours of tutoring, which is a pretty good deal. So the link is on the slide as well as in the chat, or it will be in the chat shortly. You can click and use this link throughout the live stream, but it's going to expire shortly thereafter. Now this is really kind of a special opportunity because we rarely offer discounts. So I highly recommend that you go ahead and sign up if you know you want to. If you don't know yet, we'll go ahead and talk about it as we move on. All right, so an overview of what we're going to talk about. I've seen a couple of questions on things that we're going to chat about a little bit today. So here is what we're going to talk about. Who should take the SAT essay? Is it you? We don't know yet. We're going to talk about the SAT essay format as well as SAT essay scoring. We're going to do a quick introduction to PrepScholar tutoring, kind of in the middle there. We're going to talk about the #1 essay problem area, the #1 thing that folks can't seem to get right on this essay. We're going to talk about how to study and how to prep for high essay scores. And then we're going to talk about how PrepScholar can help and then go into a question and answer. All right, so going ahead and getting rolling. Who should take the SAT essay? So the first thing to know is that the essay is optional. It did not used to be, right? You guys may know that if you have older siblings. It used to be required, but now it is optional. So you guys may or may not have already signed up for your test. You may or may not have already signed up for the essay. But even if you have or haven't, it might be worthwhile to kind of consider whether or not you should take the essay, because it may or may not be optional for your dream school or scholarship. So, something to know, there is no real trend to which schools require or recommend the essay versus which schools do not. A lot of people tend to think like, oh, I'm applying to, a liberal arts school, or I'm applying to a top 20 school, or etc., and think that, oh, the essay must be required or it will never be required. But it's actually pretty inconsistent. So here's a couple of examples. Michigan State University does not require or recommend the essay, but the University of Michigan does require it. All of the UC schools require the essay, but most of the California State University schools do not require the essay. Among our top schools, Brown, Dartmouth, Duke, Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, and Yale all require the essay, but on the other hand, Cornell, Georgetown, MIT, NYU, UChicago, and UPenn do not. In general, liberal arts schools do not require or recommend the SAT essay, but there are exceptions. For instance, Amherst, Pomona, Claremont McKenna. So if you are working on an assumption, do not do that. You should research to see if your school requires the essay. This is something that you can look up on the PrepScholar blog. We have a lot of information about that, but it is also something that you can look up from the schools themselves. So #1 thing to know is that you need to do your research. So like I mentioned, we have some really great information on that on our blog. The schools that I pulled, for instance, are from this article, Which Colleges Require the SAT Essay Complete List. Definitely check that out if you do not know for all of your schools whether or not your essay is required or recommended. But similarly, if you can't find your school's information, which I doubt, you can always go to that school's website and find out more or call their admissions. So, what do we do once we have done this process? If there are any schools, even just one, or even scholarships on your list that require the essay, you need to take it, even if it's just one. If it is required, you gotta take it. That's just the way it is. Yeah, pretty straightforward. A thing to know about those other schools is that you'll just submit the exact same thing to all of those schools. You will submit with essay. There are no schools that will not take the SAT with essay that do take the SAT without the essay. So you will take the essay, you will submit it to all the schools. Now, if there are any schools or scholarships on your list that recommend the essay, they say, hey, you should probably take it, but you don't need to take it, you should still probably take it, right? If it is recommended, you want to go ahead and put yourself in a good position to be accepted to the school. So it's your best idea to take that essay. Now, if no schools or scholarships on your list require or recommend the essay, you should still maybe take it. And there's a reason for that. So, performing well on the essay has a couple of benefits. The first benefit is that it is helpful at all schools, even the ones that do not necessarily require or recommend the essay. Even if a school says, hey, we don't hold it against you if you don't take it, showing up with a good or above average essay score demonstrates to them that you are proficient in your writing ability, and it helps them to make a more educated decision about you. So even if they don't require or recommend it, it's good to have a high score on the essay. Similarly, it keeps your options open. Even if you are pretty sure your list is finalized, things can come up, right? Potentially there is a new school you hadn't even considered before, or there is a new opportunity, or you change your mind about something. Having that essay keeps your options open and allows you to apply to other schools or other scholarships that you hadn't previously considered that might require or recommend the essay. So in pretty much every case, we recommend taking the essay. Now, there are a couple of considerations that you might look into if you are considering not taking the essay. So one consideration is that it's going to add 50 minutes and an additional time constraint to your total test time. Now, why does this matter? For some students, the fatigue of the test, as well as the stress of having to write something within a time constraint, is really difficult, right? If you're the kind of person who does a really good essay at home, but maybe struggles with in-class essays and really does not perform well, it might be a situation in which you say, hey, maybe I don't take this if none of the schools on your list require or recommend. So a pretty rare circumstance, if you can at least do an about average job on the test, we typically recommend doing it. Another consideration is that the essay does cost an additional $14 on top of your normal SAT fee. So a thing to know about that, if that is a financial burden, there are things that you can do about it. So one, you can just choose not to take the essay. That's totally fine. But another thing to consider is that some schools will offer SAT waivers, SAT essay waivers. They're not going to waive the whole test, which means that they will waive the requirement for the essay if it is a real financial burden for you to take that essay, and you can demonstrate that. Similarly, the College Board sometimes offers SAT essay fee waivers, so that means that you could take the essay without paying some sort of fee. So this is another thing to consider. So again, these are really the only considerations that you might want to take into account. Another thing to consider is if you already have a really solid essay score, you don't necessarily need to take the essay again. So that's not here on the slide, but that is something to bear in mind. You really only need to get that essay score once. All right, cool. So basically, recommendation, you should probably take the essay. All right, we're going to go ahead and talk about the SAT essay format. So, format of the essay, it is going to be 50 minutes long. This essay used to be much shorter, right? It was about 25-30 minutes, right? It was short. But now it is significantly longer, and you get a lot more time to put some thought into this essay and write a pretty decent essay. Now, in terms of what you get one planning page as well as 4 pages to write on. So you will be writing in pencil on lined paper. Prepare for that. You will not be writing in pen. Please do not bring a pen. They will not score it if you write it in pen. The planning page will not be lined. That is just a blank sheet of paper. That will be where you can pre-write. You will also be given a 750 word approximately persuasive passage. It's usually 650 to 750. And that is what your essay will be about. That is what you will be analyzing. You will be able to mark that essay up just like you can in the reading section. Similarly, you are going to have the same prompt for every single essay that you see. So every practice essay, every essay that you see on test day will have the exact same prompt. So what is that prompt? Let's go ahead and look at it. So before that 750 word passage that you're going to analyze, you're going to see this little blurb before the passage. So you can go ahead and read it. I'll go ahead and read it out loud. As you read the passage below, consider how the author, so they'll put the author's name in there, uses evidence such as facts or examples to support claims. So, oops, this actually should not be there. Ignore this line. Uses evidence such as facts or examples to support claims, reasoning to develop ideas and to connect claims and evidence, and stylistic or persuasive elements such as word choice or appeals to emotion to add power to the ideas expressed. So basically, as we read, we want to pay attention to the devices that the author uses to make their argument. So then we're going to read the essay. And then we're going to get this post-passage prompt, which says, write an essay in which you explain how the author builds a claim to persuade his or her audience that, and then it'll give you the author's claim. So the thing that the author is arguing in the passage. In your essay, analyze how the author uses one or more of the features listed above, or features of your own choice, to strengthen the logic and persuasiveness of his or her argument. Be sure that your analysis focuses on the most relevant features of the passage. Your essay should not explain whether you agree with the author's claims, but rather explain how the author builds an argument to persuade his or her audience. So hopefully this is a familiar prompt to you guys. Hopefully you've seen this before, because this should be consistent on every essay that you see. If you are working with sample prompts that do not have this same prompt, it is not accurate to the test. Do not work with it. Find another prompt to practice. So, basically, in essence, what this prompt is saying is how is the author using various devices to make the reader agree with them. Cool. So now that we know the prompt, now that we know what the essay is giving us, let's go ahead and talk about scoring. So, SAT essay scoring has 3 separate dimensions. These 3 separate dimensions are reading, analysis, and writing. Now, each of those dimensions are going to be scored from 1 to 4, right? We saw that earlier with that sample paragraph. That essay was scored a 4 on reading, a 1 on analysis, and a 3 on writing by the scorer that graded it. Now, notice that 2 scorers are going to give them scores. What we're then going to do with those scores is add them together for each dimension. So you're going to get a score between 2 and 8 in each of those dimensions. So what that means is basically these 2 scores go together, you get that score from 2 to 8 in each reading, analysis, and writing. So you might get a score of a 6, 5, 7, or a 3, 2, 5, anything like that. Now, a thing to know, there is no composite score or percentiles on SAT essay scoring. So you will not get a score for the entire essay. You will get those 3 scores. That is it. That is all that is sent to colleges. So what that means is that you can't make up for a low, say, analysis score with a high reading score, or you can't make up for a low writing score with a high reading score. Can't do it. They all need to be good. Now, another thing to note is that it does not impact your total score out of 1,600. So that total score that schools look at that gets set right next to your GPA, it does not impact that. It is something separate. We'll talk about how much that matters. I saw a question about that in the chat. I'm still also seeing some pretty off-topic questions in the chat. It'd be great if we could keep it a little bit more focused on the essay. Thank you. All right. So Really quickly, let's take a look at a rubric for this essay. So this is what a grader is going to be scoring you based on for reading, analysis, and writing. Now this is something that you can read in its entirety on the College Board website, but we'll go ahead and take a look at kind of, what a 4 or a 3 looks like for each of these sections. So you'll see for a reading, let's take a look at what a 3 is. Now a 3 is basically a proficient score. It means that you can do this successfully. So for a reading score of 3, you're going to be focused on the most important ideas and details. It means that you have picked out what the most important things are here, right? There's a really great example in one of our PrepScholar articles that if you were asked to describe a face, you would probably focus on the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, right? Those are kind of the big features of the face. You probably wouldn't talk about the eyelashes, or you wouldn't talk about, a freckle on the chin, right? You wouldn't talk about 2 little eyebrow hairs, right? You would talk about the big features. So we want our essay to be focused on the big ideas. Similarly, we do not want any major errors in facts or interpretation of the passage. So what does that mean? It means that there is nothing from the passage that we are misrepresenting. We're not saying the author is saying something they aren't. We are not presenting anything incorrectly. We're not bringing our own information to the table. Then finally, it uses appropriate evidence from the passage. So again, it's using evidence that fits well with these important ideas and details. So basically, we are just demonstrating that we read this and we understood it and what was important from it. Now, to get a 4, we're going to have to basically level up in each of those areas. So we're going to show the connections between ideas in the passage instead of just focusing on these most important ideas and details. We're going to link them. Instead of no major errors, we're going to have no errors in facts or interpretation. And finally, we're going to use the perfect evidence from the passage, right? So we're basically doing exactly what we're doing in a 3, but we're just adding a little bit to it. All right, analysis. Now, in analysis, we are evaluating the features of the passage, either completely for a 3 or thoroughly and insightfully for a 4. So this is where we are going, okay, we've picked out these features, now we are evaluating them, right? Digging into them, analyzing them. We are also making sure that we have enough support for our claims and that our support is both relevant and sufficient and ideally strategically chosen to say what we're trying to say. Then finally, we are going to stay focused as much as we can on the most relevant features of the passage. So not just the most important ideas and details, but the devices that are most commonly used. So reading and analysis are pretty different scores, and they are often pretty different in terms of number. And then finally, writing. This is the score that I think people think of the most when they think of effective writing. For writing, we are going to have a central claim. That's our thesis. Basically, for our thesis, we are trying to say the author makes this point, right? The claim that was mentioned in the prompt, and the author does it by doing X, Y, and Z. 3 different devices. That's about it for our thesis. You do not need to reinvent the wheel here. To have a slightly better central claim, we're going to make sure it is precise, right? We're going to clearly indicate what the author is doing and what the 3 things are that the author is using. All right, we are going to have an effective introduction and conclusion. Notice that this doesn't have a corollary in writing. In 4, right? Because we don't need to have an astonishing, amazing introduction or conclusion. It just needs to be effective. So that should be 2 to 3 sentences, and they should be pretty similar to each other. We are going to have a clear and ideally highly effective progression of ideas. We are going to use transition words. We are going to link our sentences together. We are going to order our paragraphs logically, etc. We are going to have good variety in our sentence structures, right? We're going to shake it up how we're saying things and not just structure our sentences the same way over and over and over again. Watch yourself for this. Everyone has a favorite sentence type. You do too. We're going to have word choice that is as precise as possible. Let's not say it's good. Let's not say it's convincing. Why is it good? Why is it convincing? In what way? We're going to be more precise. We're going to have a formal and objective tone. Again, there's no real difference between a 3 and a 4 here. And then finally, we're going to try to reduce our errors. So these could be grammatical. These could just be, simple conventions. We're not going to have run-on sentences, errors in punctuation, misspellings. Notice that even for a 4, it is virtually free of errors. It doesn't mean that you don't not spell anything wrong. You can make small mistakes as long as the author can understand it and just knows that you're going fast and not that you actually don't know this. You're probably good. All right, then a 2 and a 1, we're not going to go into in depth because obviously we don't want these, but you'll notice that it basically fails to do those things that are mentioned above. For a 2, it is failing less significantly. For a 1, it is failing quite significantly. So again, you can review this on the College Board website to see kind of what reading versus analysis versus writing are scored on. Saw a question in the chat. I'm going to get a recording or replay of this video right. It will be posted on our channel for 5 days and 5 days only, just as an FYI. All right, things that are not graded. Things that you need to know the graders do not care about. These are some of the most common things I see folks being concerned about. We do not care about your opinions about the passage. We don't care if you agree with the author's argument. We don't care if you think the author's argument is effective. That's not what this is about. This is about how the author makes their argument effectively. So we are just assuming that the author is making their argument effectively and that they are successfully convincing their reader. And we are going to explain how they are doing that. So your opinions do not matter here. Do not include them. They will only hurt your score. Similarly, we do not care about the accuracy of your interpretation. So we did see in the scoring for reading that we care about accuracy of facts, right? And how we are basically presenting those facts. But what we don't care about is if you are correctly interpreting how the reader responds to those things or interpreting what the author intended by using those devices. So you are inventing the reader and their reactions. So if you say that this thing made the reader think about their grandparents and made them consider the possibility of a future where they didn't have access to their loved ones, that's fine, right? And if you said that is absolutely what the author intended to do, again, that's fine. It doesn't matter. As long as you are not saying the author is saying something they're not in the passage. All right, and then finally, something that's not graded is SAT vocabulary. So this is something that is kind of a relic from the old exam, where it was really important to know a lot of big and fancy words, right? To really show off that you've read a thesaurus. That is not something that is cared about in this essay. What we do care about, though, is that precise language. So we don't need the word to be fancy or big or particularly high level, as long as it communicates in fewer words what you are trying to say and communicates it more effectively. So do not take the time to study big and fancy words. It's not worth it. All right, so really quickly, we had a couple of questions. How much does this matter to colleges, right? How do colleges really care about the essay? How much do they weigh it in applications? So really quickly, let's talk about the point of the SAT essay. So the first point of the SAT essay is to figure out whether or not you wrote your personal statement. It is simply a check on academic honesty. If your personal statement is very, very, very different from your SAT essay, this could raise concerns that you did not write it, that you plagiarized it, or that you had someone else write it for you. And that's a major concern to schools. Now, they know that you have a lot more time with your personal statement, and they know that you have someone to maybe edit you on your personal statement. They know this, right? And that you're under pressure when you're doing the SAT essay. So they're not expecting them to be identical. But they are expecting them to be similar. So you should not be concerned unless you've had someone go in and rewrite full sentences or paragraphs for you. If you have, probably write it again yourself, because that is not academically honest. So first thing is to check, did you write your personal statement? Now, the second thing is to check, do you meet writing benchmarks? Now, for some more competitive schools, that's going to decide whether or not you should go to the school, right? If you are significantly off of their writing benchmarks, it might jeopardize your application. But it might also help decide what classes you should be placed in. Should you be in, a remedial English class? Should you be in a standard English class? Should you be in an honors English class? That sort of thing. So that is another point of the SAT essay. So it can actually have pretty significant effects, but it usually isn't the make or break point in your application. Most frequently, if anything, it is a red flag on your application. So something that says, we're nervous, but we're gonna wait and see if there's anything else. Typically, it's not a throw your application in the trash sort of scenario. So what that means for us is that a competitive score is often going to be a 6 out of 8 across the board, which I think Laura already said in the chat. So basically what that means is that you are getting a 3 from both graders in all sections. They are saying you are proficient in all of those sections. So that is our goal. If you are shooting for perfect 8s across the board, awesome. That's awesome. But there are more important things likely in the reading, writing, and math sections that are probably a better use of your time, as well as, in the rest of your application. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick 3-minute water break. And then when we come back, we're going to do that quick introduction to PrepScholar tutoring, as well as talk about the #1 problem area that folks struggle with on their essay. Go ahead and comment in the chat if you think you know what that #1 problem area is. Based on the comments, I think a lot of you guys might know already. But we'll go ahead and be back in 3 minutes. And a quick reminder for anyone who's still here, if you are interested in purchasing PrepScholar tutoring using that discount link is on the screen as well as in the chat. 2 minutes is probably enough time to get rolling with that. I highly recommend it. All right, hopefully everybody is back and well hydrated. Before we go on to the number one essay problem area, we're going to go ahead and do a quick introduction to PrepScholar tutoring. So, what is PrepScholar tutoring and how can it help you? The foundation of PrepScholar SAT tutoring is the PrepScholar SAT online program. Now, the online program is customized to individual students. Before you start, you're going to answer a bunch of questions about your goals and your test date, as well as take a diagnostic. Now, what PrepScholar SAT is going to do is they're going to use that information to build weekly study schedules of lessons, quizzes, and practice tests leading up to your test day, and then it's going to adjust those weekly assignments based on your progress in the program. So this would be an example of a weekly study schedule here on the dashboard. This is kind of an intense one because this is an instructor account. This is probably not something that you would be recommended to do on a normal week. So for instance, I am assigned the advanced math, geometry, trigonometry lesson. So the lessons are designed to teach you the content that you need to answer questions of this skill with a ton of interactivity in various formats, such as videos like this one, as well as drill questions like this one, practice questions like, oh man, there should be some practice questions like this one, with explanations, as well as written explanations throughout this whole lesson. Now, what this means, these various formats and this interactivity means that you're going to have the highest likelihood of understanding as much of the lesson as possible on your own, no matter your learning style. Now, after you finish the lesson, very well prepared, we're going to go ahead and test our understanding with a timed quiz that feature questions of this skill in the style of the real SAT. So notice this would be a grid-in question. This is another grid-in question. Wow, a lot of grid-in questions on this one. A multiple choice, etc. And you'll notice that it's timed according to the length of real problems. You can also skip around just like a real SAT test. Now, depending on your performance on the quiz, your level on the skill that you are testing will be adjusted so that the next time you see this skill, it's going to be at the right time and at the right level. So for instance, I have mastered parallel structure. I'm advanced in most skills, but it seems like I'm struggling a little bit more with math than my other skills. It seems especially solving circles, solving equations with exponents are some issues that I am facing. Now, this is where PrepScholar tutoring is going to come in. So for skills that you didn't level up on, or even ones that you did but still had questions on, you can review them one-on-one with your SAT expert tutor. Now, using live video call technology along with screen sharing, document cameras, and shared access to your PrepScholar online account, your tutor can further explain concepts from the lessons, work with you through problems on the quizzes, and provide additional resources catered to you, your learning style, and the issues that you're facing. So for instance, one of my favorite features to use with students is this flag function. So just pretending that I did not actually write this myself, which I did, let's just pretend that I'm one of my students and I reviewed my quiz questions with the written or video explanations for this question, but I'm still not sure what I did wrong or why I did it wrong or how to recognize and fix this issue in future problems. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flag this question, right? And it pops up a little flag here. Now my tutor can then see that flag. So when my students flag questions, I can see it. And what that means is that I can see in advance of our sessions together what that student is struggling with the most and then plan our sessions accordingly. So the result is an extremely personalized test prep experience where you're always going to be working on the most important material for you and where you're going to be supported at every step. Now, in addition to content lessons and quizzes, we also have strategy lessons that we're going to assign leading up to the test, including a couple that are focused on the essay. Where you can learn how to approach the essay, even more than what we have time to cover in this webinar. So this, for instance, is a core strategy lesson on the SAT essay. We also have an advanced strategy lesson on the SAT essay. And then similarly, for each of the practice tests that we assign, we offer an essay scoring service, where you are going to handwrite a practice essay based on an official prompt and then upload scans or photos of each page. So this would be the old SAT score. Yours would be new and updated accordingly. Again, this is an instructor account. Our trained essay graders are going to read and score the essay that you uploaded, and then they're going to leave you individualized feedback on areas of weakness as well as personal notes from your grader on how to improve your score. So a lot of notes on this one. Obviously, this is not a real essay, again, because this is an instructor account. So testing 1, 2 is not a real note on this essay. But normally what you can expect is about a paragraph of personal notes from your grader, in addition to like 6 or so bullet points like the ones above. And again, this is a really great jumping off point for tutoring. I often review essay feedback and notes with my students and then work together with my students to revise their essays accordingly. So, if you're interested in improving the quality of your SAT prep, including your SAT essay prep, we've again got a special tutoring sale just for the guests at this webinar. So that's $70 off of 4 hours, $110 off of 12 hours, and $350 off of 50 hours. We also have $40 off of our complete prep, which is the online program only, which again includes that essay scoring service. Now, the best part about this is that there is 1 hour of risk-free tutoring within 60 days of purchase. So you're going to be charged immediately, but if after your first hour of tutoring you decide not to continue with it, you can get a refund. So if you've done less than 10 hours in the online program, you'll get a full refund and your program will be totally closed. Now, if you've done 10 or more hours in the online program, you'll get a refund for the whole tutoring portion, but just not for the complete prep. So your complete prep account will remain active for your use. So basically, if you try out PrepScholar tutoring and it's not for you, you don't have to pay. And again, you get a full 60 days to use that first hour. So if you aren't quite ready to start yet, you do not have to miss out on this special discount. So like I mentioned before, this offer is going to expire shortly after the live stream ends. So I encourage you to sign up now using the link on the screen and in the chat, even if it means missing the rest of the live stream. This live stream is going to be posted on our YouTube channel after it processes, and it will be live for 5 days after it ends. So you can watch the rest of this live stream at a later date, but you may not be able to utilize this discount at a later date. So feel free to use this link. It is on the screen. It should also be in the chat. But we're going to go ahead and move on to the number 1 essay problem area. And you guys know what it is. We saw a couple of really good comments there. It seems like you guys might have the same problem area as well. But let's go ahead and look at some data from College Board first. So from the 2018 graduating class, this is the distribution of their SAT essay reading scores, right? You'll see that the most common reading score is a 6, right? That's exactly what we're shooting for, which is awesome. Largely, folks are scoring kind of in the 4 to 6 zone. Not a lot of folks at 2 to 3, but also not a lot of folks 7 or 8. So this is kind of the happy zone. Ideally, we'd be up here. Now, you'll notice that the writing scores for the 2018 graduating class are also very similar, right? Predominantly, folks are going to be scoring a 6, if not a 6, likely a 4 or a 5. Again, not a ton of people in this 2 to 3 zone, not a ton of people in the 7 to 8 zone. However, analysis is a very different story. You'll notice that the most common analysis score is a 2. This means that they are getting the lowest possible score from each grader. Now, the second most common score is a 4, right? That means they are getting the second lowest score from each grader. You'll notice pretty much no one is getting an 8, and the number of people who are getting a 6, which is our goal, is not very high, right? So if you take a look at these scores compared, you'll see, hey, pink, pretty high over here. Purple, pretty high over here. But green, oof, way down here. So it seems that most folks have really unbalanced scores. They really, really struggle with getting that analysis score right. So an example. We've talked about what analysis means, right? It means that we are looking at how the author is making their argument. Now, you guys thought that this was a pretty like middle of the road paragraph, and it is, but in terms of analysis, there is nothing there. You'll notice that this is a lot like a summary, right? We see, okay, Bogard says natural darkness can be a positive help to humans. Here's a way it can accomplish this. Bogard also gives an example. Okay, he states this. Bogard states. Bogart says. He gives an illusion. Ooh, appealing illusion, that's not bad. And his argument shows how it can benefit humans. We don't talk at all about why Bogart is doing these things. We aren't talking at all about how the reader is reacting to these things. We aren't talking at all about how it makes his argument stronger. So, how do we improve something like this? What we're going to do is we're going to ask ourselves a series of questions. So, the first thing we're going to ask is just, what is the author doing, right? What is the author doing in our example? Are they using good word choice? Are they, and again, good would not be very precise vocabulary. Are they utilizing strong visual images? Are they utilizing statistical evidence? Are they appealing to authority? What are they doing? Then we're going to ask, okay, but why is the author doing that? What's the point of doing that? How are they trying to make their essay stronger? Why have they chosen this instead of just doing something else? Then we're going to ask, what is the effect of this device on the reader? So how does the reader feel or react to the author using this device? And then finally, how does this reaction that the reader has had cause them to agree with the author? So you can almost think about it like this. We're taking a shovel, and what is the author doing is our first little scoop. Okay, then why is the author doing that? Okay, that's a second scoop. What is its effects on the reader? Okay, third scoop. And then how does that cause the reader to agree with the author? Fourth scoop, right? We're just going to dig deeper and deeper and deeper and keep asking why? Now, a lot of folks seem to think like, but it's obvious why they do it. It's convincing, and you know why, right? Well, yes, of course you know why, and of course the grader knows why, but you need to show them that you know why. So a lot of folks feel a little bit like they're stating the obvious in this essay. That's okay. You need to make sure that your ideas are really thoroughly explained. So one thing that is really important to remember is that if we have one fully analyzed example per paragraph, it's way better than having several partially analyzed examples. A lot of the essays that I've seen that aren't scoring very well have many examples per paragraph. That previous paragraph included. There were too many examples in that paragraph and zero analysis of any of them. So a better move is once you have chosen the topic for your paragraph, make sure that it's a big device, that we're focusing on one big example. We choose that big example, something that is particularly important to that essay, and then we analyze that completely, and then we're done. If you really want to do a second example for that paragraph, leave a bunch of lines, go on to your next paragraph, and then come back if you have time. We want to make sure that we have at least half of our paragraph as analysis. So here's an example that is much stronger. So go ahead and give this a read. And I'll actually go ahead and read it with you. So we'll notice how this answers all of those questions. So Bogard starts his article off by recounting a personal story. A summer spent on a Minnesota lake where there was woods so dark that his hands disappeared before his eyes. Right? Okay, so this is, what is the author doing? Right? So he's recounting a personal story, and here's what it is. So that's our first question. In telling this brief anecdote, Bogard challenges the audience to remember a time when they could fully amass themselves in natural darkness void of artificial light. Okay, so this is, why is the author doing that? right? Well, the author is doing that to invite the audience to remember this time. Okay, by drawing in his readers with a personal encounter about night darkness, the author means to establish the potential for beauty, glamour, and awe-inspiring mystery that genuine darkness can possess. So this is kind of a combination of those second questions. Why is the author doing what he's doing, and what is the effect on the reader? Right? They now understand the potential for beauty, glamour, and awe-inspiring mystery that genuine darkness can possess. He builds his argument for the preservation of natural darkness by reminiscing for his readers, again, this is the effect on the readers, a first-hand encounter that proves the irreplaceable value of darkness. This anecdote provides a baseline of sorts for readers to find credence with the author's claims. So here we are, our final question. This is why the effect on the reader causes them to agree with the author. It is a baseline for them to find credence with his claims. So you'll notice in this example, and again, this is an official score from a College Board grader. This is a 4 for reading, right? Demonstrates that they understand what the passage was saying, and they've chosen a really quite critical example. It also has an analysis score of 4 as well as a writing score of 4. Notice quite precise language, not perfect, but quite precise. And then there's, again, that analysis score of 4. So we notice there's only one example, but we really fully dig into this example. This is not a tremendously long paragraph. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences, but it does everything it needs to do. So yeah, again, this is not a full essay. This would be one of the body paragraphs of the essay, right? Just like this previous example. So this one. These are each the first paragraph, the first body paragraph of an essay. So an essay this short would not get a perfect score. This would be an example of part of an essay that would get this 4, 4, 4. So this would be a 4, 4, 4 from one grader. Likely the other grader would grade them the same and give them an 8, 8, 8 in total. So notice the differences between these two in analysis. They ask those questions. So what is the author doing? Why are they doing it? What is the effect on the reader? And then how does this impact on the reader cause them to agree with the author's claims? So how do we study for high essay scores, and particularly for a high analysis score? So one thing that's really useful is to review scored essays, just like we did here. There are a ton more examples on the College Board website. There are more examples of scored essays for this particular essay called Let There Be Dark by Bogard. And then there is also another example essay example prompt with several example essays all scored. So taking a look at those can really help you to see what actually gets those scores. It's not just this nebulous thing that 6 across the board or that 8 across the board. You can actually see what that means, especially in comparison with other scores. So what does a 1 in analysis look like with a 4 in reading? What does a 2 in analysis look like with a 4 in reading? What does a 3 in analysis look like with a 4 in reading? And so on. So reviewing scored essays. Also really useful. Learn more about essay strategy and best practices. So we've talked about some really good stuff today, but 1 hour is, not a ton of time. There is more that you can do to learn about how to improve your essay process. A lot of questions asked in the chat that we just don't have time for today. So those complete strategy guides in the PrepScholar online program are going to really help with a lot of this stuff that we weren't able to cover. Now, similarly, if you're not looking for a complete guide, we have a lot of free articles on the PrepScholar blog. They aren't going to tell you necessarily everything you need to know, but they are going to tell you a lot. So highly recommend those. Another really useful thing is to plan out your 50 minutes. I heard some folks asking about this in the chat. Make sure that you have a plan for your essay so that you don't get halfway through and then time's up, right? Or you don't spend too much time pre-writing and then you can't get all of that information into your essay. Or you don't pre-write and then you realize halfway through writing a paragraph that it was a really bad idea. So some quick recommendations. We recommend spending about 5 to 10 minutes on reading, 7 to 12 minutes on analysis and planning. So that's the pre-writing process, about 25 to 35 minutes on writing, and 2 to 3 minutes on revising. But it's going to be a little bit up to you. one of the things that you can do to improve this is to practice with official prompts. Now you can practice this both timed and untimed. So this untimed practice is going to help you get things right, improve your pre-writing process, improve your analysis score. This is also a really good thing to do with revising previous timed essays. But you're also going to want to do timed practice. And then based on how that goes, you can then shift your plan for those 50 minutes. So maybe you need to spend less time revising. Maybe you need to spend a little bit less time reading. Maybe you need to spend a little bit more time annotating, etc. And again, remember, official prompts are the best. There are quite a few out there. So definitely utilize those. And then finally, get your practice essays scored. Now, practicing these essays is useful on its own, but if you don't know if you're doing things right or wrong, it's not always the most useful thing. You might think that, you're improving your essay when really you're focusing on things that aren't tremendously important and weakening areas that are quite important. So like we mentioned before, the PrepScholar online program offers essay scoring for all 8 of the official exams available on College Board, which is really quite rare for prep companies. And then similarly, you can do further analysis on those essays with tutors. If you are going to be working with someone that is not at PrepScholar, definitely make sure that they are qualified to score your essays. There are folks out there who are not necessarily qualified to give those scores. So, how can PrepScholar help with this? Well, pretty clearly, we do offer a lot of SAT essay services, right? So essay scoring for all 8 official SAT practice exams with scoring details and personalized notes from your scorer it is really quite useful when trying to improve your essay, because you can tell whether or not you're doing something right and you're not just kind of stabbing blindly in the dark. Now this is again available in the online program even without tutoring, which is again pretty rare. Similarly, there is going to be one-on-one essay help from your PrepScholar expert tutor to kind of work out the details more personally. Now, on top of that, PrepScholar tutoring helps with the entire test, taking the guesswork out of building a study schedule that focuses on the most important elements for you, and then providing the peace of mind that comes from expert backup. So if you're still working on your SAT prep, and especially if you're looking for personalized help with your SAT essay, again, I really do recommend that you take advantage of the special discount and the 1 hour of risk-free tutoring by signing up for PrepScholar tutoring now. So what you'll do is you'll click the link, you'll enter your email, select the package you're interested in, and then hit submit. And then there will be 2 steps on the screen. So you'll sign up for the package on PrepScholarTutors.com and then email us so we can process your discount. But be sure to follow those directions on your screen carefully so we can be sure you get the discount. It's a really quick 5-minute process. So again, there's nothing to lose, a lot of points to gain, and hours of wasted study to save. So I really encourage you to click the link and sign up now. Now, while you guys do that, we're going to take about 10 minutes for questions and answers. So any questions that you guys have about the topics in this webinar or about PrepScholar tutoring and today's special discount, you can share those in the chat. This is also a really great opportunity to sign up. If you have any issues with the sign up process, please do share them in the chat and we will help you troubleshoot. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop my face up. Hi. And any questions that you have that are related to this webinar, please share them in the chat. Yeah, there's a great question that Laura did answer. That's, will there be future opportunities to receive discounts on SAT prep packages? Potentially. We don't have any active plans to offer any through webinars right now. So we can't promise anything. So again, I really recommend signing up now. You get 60 days to use that first hour of tutoring. So you really don't have to decide now, you just have to sign up now. How does the score guarantee work? That's a really great question. So the score guarantee works if you have an official practice, or sorry, not an official practice test, an official actual SAT exam that you have taken before, so we can verify your before score. And then you'll send us your score for an actual test taken at an actual testing center after you've completed the program, and then we'll use those to determine whether or not you meet that score guarantee. Also important, you'll need to have completed the program to get that score guarantee. If you spent 5 minutes in the program, you're not gonna get that score guarantee because you didn't go through it. So if you've completed the program and you can verify your score before and after with official exams, then that applies to you. Is the SAT essay score out of 24 points in total or individual points? Yeah, again, there is no cumulative score for the SAT essay. It is just those individual scores out of 8. So there is a reading score out of 8, there is an analysis score out of 8, and there's a writing score out of 8, which means that if you do really well in one section and really poorly in another, that's what they're going to see. They're not going to see an average score. So that really means that we do need to get, you know, a 6 in all of those sections and not an 8 in one and a 4 in the other. We had a question much earlier. How do we know which idea is important from the essay prompt? That's a really great question. One tool that is kind of useful. A couple tools, really quickly. One thing that you can note is basically how much space it takes up in the what's the word? In the passage. If it takes up, you know, a line, a sentence, it may not be particularly important. However, if it's the main focus of a paragraph, it's likely quite important. Similarly, you can use a lot of the tools that we use on the reading section for determining if something is important. So if it's in a topic sentence or if it's got a transition word in front of it, that sort of thing can be indicative that it's important. Finally, a quick thing that you can do, again, something we do for the reading section, is do a quick, just like 2-word summary for the paragraph. If it's something that is relevant to that summary or that is very closely related to that summary, it is a big idea. So yeah, we just don't want to pick anything that's like a minor detail. We want to pick something that is prominent in the argument. So it's something that we would pick out in a summary. And then finally, when we pick out those ideas, we want to pick out devices that are used prominently to not express those ideas, but to further build on those ideas. Okay. What specific rhetorical strategies are best to mention in our essay that we should use in author's analysis? So great question. You'll notice in that prompt, it talks about use of evidence. It talks about use of, you know, devices like humor and imagery. It talks about use of logic. So those are quite good examples, the ones that are mentioned in the prompt. But what I would recommend largely is going based off of what appears the most. So if something that's not on that list appears quite frequently, use that, right? If there is something that is on that list that appears quite frequently, use that. We have a really good PrepScholar article on common rhetorical devices. Laura, if you could link that, that would be awesome if you can find it. But it's really great. You can also just Google for PrepScholar SAT essay devices, and you should find it. So I think it's got like 15 of the most common ones. That would be useful for you. But again, yeah, the best one to use is going to depend on the passage that you get. All right, will a PSAT score count for the score guarantee? I do not believe so. Laura, I don't know if you can confirm or deny that one. I don't think so. But that would definitely be in our terms and conditions, which you can find on our website to ensure whether or not that would work. Thank you, Laura, for the common rhetorical devices article. Yes, that's the one. All right, let's see. About how long should the essay be? Definitely more than a page. You get 4 pages. Ideally, we want to fill 4 pages. Typically, the longer the essay is, the better it is for the most part. Again, not always true. That paragraph that we saw for that 413 essay was from a fairly long essay, and it wasn't the best, but also it's not the worst. Had a fairly high reading and writing score. So we typically want to aim to fill that space as much as we can, get onto that 4th page. But if you don't, if you have fully analyzed each of those examples, that's okay. So maybe you have small handwriting. All right. How many paragraphs? Intro paragraph, conclusion paragraph, and 3 body paragraphs. 5-paragraph essay. Yeah, and then each of those body paragraphs focused on one rhetorical device. There are other ways to structure the essay. You've probably seen like a chronological approach. I don't see those scoring very well all that frequently. So while you can approach it another way, I don't find that those are the most effective for doing good analysis, especially. So typically that 5-paragraph essay structure is the best. And those intro and conclusion paragraphs are again quite short. They're typically like 2 to 3 sentences, maybe 4 if you're really reaching, but they do not need to be particularly long to get a good score. Prioritize your thesis. How should I make my conclusion without restating the introduction thesis? You are restating the introduction and thesis. All you're going to do is reword it. So a really good trick, if you say, in the intro, the author basically is arguing this thing by doing X, Y, and Z. In your conclusion, go, the author is doing the argue does X, Y, and Z to argue this thing. You just switch the order, right? Or take something that was previously 2 sentences and make it 1 sentence. All you're doing is just kind of changing up the presentation. You're not really changing up any of those ideas. So don't reinvent the wheel with the conclusion. You do not need to. Cool. Yeah, definitely don't waste your time there. Make sure your thesis is effective. That is extremely important. Make sure that you do have a conclusion and that you do restate the thesis in your conclusion, but don't spend a ton of time trying to like make it beautiful, because that's not the point. Is a 5 good for reading and a 5 for writing? It's not bad. It's definitely not, the kind of thing that is typically going to get, an application like thrown out. But again, we really do mean it when we say 6 across the board is probably what you want to aim for, especially if you're applying to competitive schools. If you're not applying to super competitive schools, that might be something that's a little bit better. But yeah, typically we recommend try to get a 6 across the board. That just demonstrates that you are proficient and that both of the graders agree that you are proficient. Whereas a 5 says one grader thinks you're proficient and the other one doesn't. So, 6, 5, 6. Again, it's close, but ideally you would have a 6 in analysis as well. How do you improve your score in each category from 5s to 7s or 8s, or sorry, from 6s to 7s or 8s? First, you don't need to, is kind of the first thing. Unless you already have exactly the score out of 1600 that you want, it's probably better to focus on that than on further improving your essay. So prioritize your time accordingly. Essay, once you have those 6s across the board, is probably not going to be nearly as important as spending time on other elements of your application and other elements of the test. That said, if you do want to improve your score further, I really do recommend looking at those essays, those sample essays, looking at, okay, what does a 3 versus a 4 look like? So like a 3 for one grader versus a 4 for the other grader. What does that difference actually, what do I see there? Especially with analysis, there are good examples of like 4 3 4s versus 4 4 4s, and seeing like what does that 1 point look like. So I highly recommend looking at that to kind of see what that looks like to you. And then also what I recommend, we have some articles out there about getting SAT essay scores. Laura, She literally just posted it. So go ahead and take a look at that. Another really useful thing would be if you sign up for that online PrepScholar SAT program. We have that advanced SAT essay strategy lesson, which talks about, okay, here's how to level up from 6s across the board to 8s across the board. And then similarly, getting that individualized grading is just going to help kind of focus in on what you're missing and what you are struggling with. So I would highly recommend that if you are really trying to get that kind of last few points. Oh, you can use your PSAT score as your before score. I'm totally wrong. Thank you, Laura, for confirming that. Yes, you can. So as long as it is an official score, PSAT or SAT, you're good to go for your kind of initial demonstration score of how you perform. So all we'll do is we'll take that PSAT score and then kind of convert it into an SAT score and then use that to determine where you started for your score guarantee. Thank you, Laura. Lifesaver. All right. Should I write a generic statement to open my essay, or should I go straight to answering the prompt? Typically, I kind of launch in with a 2 or 3 sentence thesis. I don't really do much in terms of a hook. That said, yeah, great answer from Laura. Just leave space, right? Write in your thesis, right? 1 or 2 sentences. And then if you finish your essay, you can go back in to add that hook. Again, a hook is not necessarily going to like make or break this essay for you. Definitely not as important as doing the rest of it. But yeah, leave yourself space. The graders do not care about blank lines. All right, cool. Let me go ahead and scroll back and see if there are any more questions that I've missed. Otherwise, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up soon. If you do have any additional questions, please throw those in the chat now, because we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. And again, that link for the discount is on the screen. You can also find it pretty easily in the chat. Again, you can use that. Really quickly, to tell you a little bit more about this, this discount is going to be live for 24 hours after the stream ends. So it should be live until 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So that is going to be Tuesday, April 16th. So if you have not signed up yet, maybe need to talk to parents, or, you know, just want to think about it a little more, sleep on it, you can sign up until 9 p.m. tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern, but it will be no longer available after that. And again, this stream, if you want to rewatch any of it, will be on our channel in a couple of hours once it processes, and then it will be live on our channel for 5 days, and then it will go offline. Let's see. Yeah, someone mentions they want to meet up with their college counselor tomorrow to see if they recommend more SAT prep. Totally awesome. Yeah, great call. Meet with them. It will still be available until tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern, which is 6 p.m. Pacific. Let's see. Anything else? Did anyone? Will I have enough space to write my outline on the essay? So again, there is 1 page that is available for pre-writing that's totally blank. So yeah, you have a whole page, which is a decent amount of space. You also, on the page with the prompt, can annotate your essay and should annotate your essay. So you'll have that annotation as well as that prep sheet. So in terms of your outline, we have some articles about how to effectively outline and what an effective outline might look like, again, on our blog, as well as in those strategy guides in the strategy lessons in the PrepScholar program. So I recommend looking at those. But yeah, a page should definitely be enough. Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. If you do have any more questions that somehow you couldn't get into the chat before we're wrapping up, please do put those in the comments on this video once it's posted, if you do have those. Again, this discount is live until tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. We really do recommend that you take advantage of it because it really is kind of a special opportunity and it's totally risk-free. So thank you for being here today. Best of luck with your SAT essay, and hopefully we will see you soon for another live stream. See ya.